What's up? This MLB Talk 123. The trade deadline this year was very interesting. Other years it's very clear. The teams that were going to offer very good players, you pretty much knew. This year it was kind of murky for a while. For a few days it was very quiet. The next few days it was just pounding out deals all the time. Seeing players like Ubaldo Jimenez with many years on a team-friendly contract be dealt, and then see a player like Heath Bell who's going to be a Type A free agent, and the San Diego Padres are way out of contention at this point, and see him not be dealt. So it's very interesting in that sense. And then you see a guy like Colby Rasmus be dealt, and players like Heath Bell, Josh Willingham, other players like that, who pretty much have been speculated to be for sure dealt for many months, didn't get dealt. So kind of odd in that sense. The market took a while to figure itself out. So interesting in that. And I was watching a Cardinals interview with the GM, John Mozeliak, and he said at that point, this was many days before the trade deadline was over, he said that he has talked to 25 of 29 clubs. So it's interesting to know that GMs really go out and talk to every club to see what players can make a difference short term, long term, and what their pretty much their ultimate goal is here. They all want to obviously get their club to a winning point, but some teams obviously are looking more long term than short term. So very interesting about that. So about the trade deadline, I made a video about 1 through 5 top winners. Now I'm going to make a video 6 through 10. Number 6, I'm going to go with one that a lot of teams haven't really been talking about in winners. 7 through 10, pretty much all a tie there. Those are teams that are trying to get to the playoffs very desperately and made some moves that are definitely going to help their chances. But number 6, I'm just going to pick this one from the pack, the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan, but I love the deal that the Toronto Blue Jays made. I understand it, and I think that the GM is very smart for doing it. I respect the Toronto Blue Jays and the GM, Alex Anthopoulos or whatever. It's AA. I'll just call him A. I think it's Anthropoulos or something. I don't know. I'm really bad with names. But anyway, so the Toronto Blue Jays, again, not really happy to see Colby Rasmus being dealt for no top prospects. But John Jay was playing better than him. Colby Rasmus, a lot of problems with the front office and all that. So seeing him dealt, there's a lot of hate on him when you go on forums and stuff. So, a lot of Cardinals fans didn't like him. Getting past that, to see him dealt without a top prospect is a little bit disappointing. But to see him dealt pretty much fill all the Cardinals' needs for this year, which, it makes sense to pretty much go all in this year, even though we don't have Adam Wainwright. We got to remember that. That's a huge blow. Not having him, and obviously it hurts our chances to make it to the playoffs and go far in the playoffs. Not having a guy who will go 8 innings and pretty much just allow no runs or 1 run almost every time he goes out and pitches. So obviously, having an ace in that has been a struggle this year for the St. Louis Cardinals. Having Chris Carpenter being up and down, having injuries all the time, never having Matt Holliday, Albert Pujols, and Lance Berkman hot at the right time, never having a shortstop that won't make errors every few games. Now we finally do have Rafael Furcal. It's just been a very off year for the St. Louis Cardinals, very frustrating year off and on, but it's been pretty fun to watch, I have to admit, to see kind of just all these different guys and really come through. But anyway, getting back to the Toronto Blue Jays at number 6. Understanding the deal, I really like it for the Toronto Blue Jays, getting a center fielder for the future. You got, the Blue Jays have a great future for them. Having guys like Rasmus, Aaron Sabia catching, leads the major leagues, or the AL at least, in home runs for a catcher, and he's a rookie. He's a really likable guy. You have Jose Bautista. If Edwin Encarnacion can figure it out, he's a pretty decent pickup there. Aaron Hill, I'm not sure how much longer he's going to be a Blue Jay, but obviously third base, you got Brett Lowry come in. Eric Thames is a very exciting player in the outfield. And so you have some exciting players. Starting pitching, you also have some exciting players. Obviously, Kyle Drabek, pretty much untouchable in any trade, not expecting a guy like him. In a deal for Rasmus, though, I would love to see a guy like Eric Thames be the centerpiece in the deal. Eric Thames, maybe Mark Repchinski, and Edwin Jackson. Obviously, those are the 3 best players in the deal, so you can't really just pick and choose every player you'd want, but that'd be kind of a dream scenario in a Colby Rasmus trade, filling up the Cardinals' starting pitching and relief needs while getting a top prospect. But obviously, it's a little bit unrealistic, but it would have been great if it happened. But anyway, love the deal for the Blue Jays. Getting a future All-Star center fielder maybe in Colby Rasmus, tons of potential. He was one of the top prospects in baseball. It'd be like dealing with Jason Hayward. You got to remember Colby Rasmus. Yes, I know he struggled this year, but last year he showed a lot of potential, and the year before he had like 21, 22 home runs. Last year, 23 home runs as a 23-year-old. Very inconsistent. At the beginning of this year, he finally seemed like he was catching on to it. He had a high batting average. His power was down a little bit, but high batting average nonetheless. And he was scoring a ton of runs in that 2-hole. He was getting on base. His on-base percentage was very high. Then he just went in this huge slump. And John Jay was, he'd get up there and he had 3 hits one day, and then the Cardinals would expect Rasmus to start the next day. And it got to a problem where, John Jay was playing so much better than Colby defensively and offensively. So this is a guy, though, for the Blue Jays that, Blue Jays fans got to be excited about him. And got to be happy that your general manager really only had to give up one player that's going to be controlled for the next few years, Mark Zepchinski. He's very good, by the way. And then you had to give up Edwin Jackson, so you had to give up a pretty good pitching prospect for him. And then you had to give up a reliever. And then you had to give up and you had to take on some salary, but the general manager said he'll probably find a way to get rid of some of that salary by next season. So pretty much you had to take on some salary. You had to give up a pretty good pitching prospect, not a top prospect, pretty good pitching prospect, and a reliever, and a bunch of guys who are going to be free agents. And then you ended up getting a guy who could be an all-star for the next few years. So a good move for the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, it looks like a win right now, and it probably will be a win, pretty much no matter what, unless Zepchinski becomes an all-star pitcher, wins 20 games or something. But, very solid ad there. Or unless the Cardinals go very far in the playoffs or win the World Series. So, probably going to be a win for the Blue Jays, though. But I also kind of like the deal more and more for the Cardinals, considering the fact that John Jay was playing better than Rasmus, and the Cardinals filled up pretty much all their needs except for middle infield needs by trading away Rasmus. And a guy who was, kind of good to get out of the clubhouse at this point. And John Jay was playing better than him anyway. But I love Rasmus, don't get me wrong. He was one of my favorite players in the Cardinals in the beginning of the year. But I think it was time for the Cardinals to move on. I think it was time for him to move on. I feel good for him entering a place like Toronto. So, good for him. Now, numbers 7 through 10, pretty much all the same to me. I was going to go separately. I decided to make it all pretty much a tie because they're so close. At 7 through 10, I'm going to go with Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Arizona. And the Brewers, I'll add 11, I guess. I like the deal for Pittsburgh, obviously. Very good deal for Pittsburgh. Adding 2 veteran bats in the lineup gives them that boost, gives them that playoff experience. And for them, I think the main thing, just get over 500. Yes, you're not too far out of the Central, but I don't think you're going to make it. No offense to Pirates fans, I don't think they're going to make it in the long run and win the Central. Just get over 500. I think that's very important for the fan base of Pittsburgh if you can get over 500, something you haven't done in almost 20 years. You don't want to start a streak like the Cubs and have it haunt you for the rest of your team's life. But the Cubs have been pretty successful without even winning the past few years. But the Pirates, great moves were there. Derek Lee, he homered twice in the first game. Obviously, I think he's going to be a big boost. And forget about his time with the Orioles, all right? The Orioles, they're like 20 under 500. Derek Lee, that's not the true Derek Lee. I know he's not the 35 home run guy that he was, but I think this is a guy for the Pirates that can bat not 240. I think he can more bat like 275, 280 for the Pirates. Maybe even 290. I don't know. But I think he can have some power, adds good power in the middle of that lineup. Lyle Overbay wasn't getting the job done. They signed him to a $5 million contract. I think the Pirates got in a position last offseason where they had to sign anyone who's going to be an improvement because the fans were pretty much forcing them to. Once they found out about that they were making $30 million plus profit and they're putting together a team with a very low budget and not winning. They're not giving themselves a chance to win. And so the fans were really pissed off. I would be too if I was, a fan of that organization. And so they go out and they get guys like Matt Diaz and Lyle Overbay and some starting pitchers. Some of the starting pitchers have been really good additions like Kevin Correa. I probably said his name wrong, but so some of those haven't worked out. And when you do that, it's not always going to work out. You know, just kind of getting anyone who's an improvement. It's not going to work out, but it's definitely helped the Pirates, obviously. They have been improvements over the Pirates in the recent years. Obviously, getting above 500. Having guys like Andrew McCutchen growing up, getting, more mature as a baseball player on and off the field, playing better. And all those guys just kind of growing up and putting together better stats and working together as a team. And obviously, their pitching's looked a lot better this year. Guys like Jeff Carson's have been, really surprisingly good. And then, you have Joe Hanrahan, one of the best relievers in baseball, on their team. So, a pretty exciting young team. And then you add 2 veteran bats and Ryan Ludwig, Derek Lee. They've been in the playoffs. They know how to win. They know how to hit home runs. So, love the deal for the Pirates. Also, really like the deals that the Cardinals have made. I already talked about the Rasmus trade. No need to talk about that any longer. But, obviously, acquiring guys like Edwin Jackson, I think he's going to be a big help in the rotation. Mark Zemchinsky, I think he's going to be a big help in the relief. And I think Dotel is going to be a huge help in relief. A guy who can come in the 8th. He hasn't given up a run as a Cardinals pitch like 3 innings. He strikes out some guys. He has a great fastball. He throws a fastball like 90% of the time. I really like this guy in this bullpen. And, who knows? Maybe the Cardinals will, sign him or pick up his option for the season. But if they don't, draft picks. So I think that's another reason why the Cardinals got those players. But love the deal for the Cardinals getting those pitchers. And then Rafael Furcal, very excited about him. Obviously, they had to give up a pretty good Double-A outfielder, but not a top prospect. He might be able to. He projects as like a 4th outfielder, but he might be able to put something together for the Dodgers. Maybe in a few years. Maybe if they trade on to 8th year next year, maybe he'll be. Not saying he'll be starting, but maybe he'll be a backup outfielder. Maybe he'll work his way up in the organization. Who knows? But the fact is, to get a guy like Rafael Furcal, getting a middle infielder, the main thing here is defense. Ryan Terry has 16 errors so far. We cannot get to the playoffs with a guy like that. There's no way you're going to get to the playoffs with a middle infield of Terrio and Schumacher. Schumacher, a guy who came from the outfield to second base. Don't get me wrong, he's been pretty good, solid defender at short this year. And he's been hitting a lot better recently. This whole month he's been batting like 380. So he's rated his batting average to like 280 overall. But I love to see Rafael Furcal getting at the top of the lineup. He's a slap hitter, stealing bases, getting in position for John Jay and Albert Pujols and Matt Holliday and Lance Berkman and David Freese to drive him in. So it's a very deep Cardinals lineup, and I love the deal for the Cardinals finally going out and getting a big name shortstop. Obviously, he struggled this year, so they got him at an all-time low. Buy low on him, and I think he'll do very well as a Cardinal. He's picked up his first few hits as a Cardinal. Gotta like that. He's doing it at the top of the lineup. Gotta like that too. And I think the defense is obviously the most important part. Even if he only bats 250 as a Cardinal, which it might be realistic considering he's been injured and he's only batting like 200 overall for the season. But even if he only bats 250, defense-wise, if he makes only 2 or 3 errors the rest of the season, obviously a lot of people are expecting him to not make any errors the rest of the season. But if he only makes 1 or 2 errors the rest of the season, or 2 or 3, it's still a big improvement over Terrio and might get us to the playoffs because of that. Who knows if those wins that we get might decide whether we make the playoffs or not. Love the deal there. Love the deal for the Diamondbacks, getting a solid starting pitcher in Jason Marquis, going to eat up a lot of innings, and then getting Brad Ziegler from the Oakland A's, getting a very solid reliever who's going to be team controlled through 2014. He's put up very solid numbers. Obviously, having to give up Brandon Allen. Not the biggest thing there, but they just called up a pretty good first baseman from AAA. So excited to be about him coming up. But Brandon Allen has been kind of off and on. He strikes out a lot, hits a lot of home runs, but he strikes out a lot. And he's never going to hit 300 and hit 30 home runs. So I think, good move, very good move for the Arizona Diamondbacks, helping out that bullpen, setting up for J.J. Putz, getting a guy like 7th, 8th inning guy, and then getting Jason Marquis, who's going to eat up a lot of innings. I'm going to who else did I have? The Diamondbacks. Oh, the Tigers. Also love the moves that they got here. Doug Fister, David, David, not Pauly. They just released David Pauly, almost. Doug Fister and, no, wait, it was David Pauly. Yeah, Percy was designated for sign. Pauly. Great reliever, great starter. He's only 3-12 for this year, but he's had a 3.3 ERA, very solid pickups. Now they have 4 of 5 rotation guys controlled for the next few years. Solid pickup for the Detroit Tigers at 6 through 10. Good moves, Detroit trade deadline. Thanks for watching. I'm going to be talking.